You're listening to Spotlight, the podcast that fosters connections with veterans and military spouses. Here's your host, Bob Louthan.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthan, founder of the Veteran Crowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into the Spotlight. And now a word about a Veteran Crowd Spotlight partner, Fund the First. Fund the First is the nation's leading crowdfunding platform for first responders, military, and medical professionals. Thanks to a partnership with ID.me, Fund the First is able to combat fraud and scams to ensure donors that money is going to a verified and trusted source. Visit fundthefirst.com for more details. Fund the First, crowdfunding for our nation's heroes. Our guest today is Garrett Cathcart. He's the Executive Director of Mission Roll Call. He is a 2004 graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, former Cavalry Troop Commander in the Army. He's been a speechwriter. He's been very actively involved with a number of organizations, Vetlanta, Bunker Labs, Team Red, White, and Blue. He's been a Bush Scholar. We're going to find out all about that. And most importantly, he's now on the mission to bring veterans and give every veteran a voice through Mission Roll Call. So, Garrett, thank you for being a guest and for stepping into the spotlight.
Thanks so much for having me, Bob. Appreciate it.
Hey, let's talk about your current passion first, and then we're going to kind of go back and cover history. But tell everybody what Mission Roll Call is doing and how things are going.
Sure. Yeah, Mission Roll Call. We're of America's Warriors Partnership, a large national nonprofit. And really, we're kind of a solution to a problem. And it really started around a campfire in Montana a couple of years ago. It was myself, a Medal of Honor recipient, Jim Lorraine, who runs AWP, and a funder. We're kind of talking about how come no one post 9/11 is joining the kind of the big legacy veteran organizations. You know, you think of the VFW, Legion. So we had our conversation around that, and kind of a few days later, I kind of had the idea, what if we did something digitally, right? How do we connect to there's almost half the veterans in the country are not connected to any VSO or the VA, right? And so we're talking about policy around veterans. How do we have a real conversation if half of us aren't even in the room? And so we started this idea, and within 2 years, it's grown and become successful. Bring a large social media audience, getting folks to sign up with their email address and phone number so we can text you polls about things that are going on in policy and things that you think. And then we take all that data information and we go straight to the folks that are making decisions. And they have been impressed and astounded by our ability to connect to hundreds of thousands of veterans all from all over the country and ask them what they think. And conversely, we go back to them and say, hey, this is what you guys did, right? And so we were asked to testify in front of Congress last year for the first time, which is pretty cool, and help pass a bill that's going to be great for mental health for our veterans. So really, it's kind of becoming that unfiltered platform of truth to lawmakers and policymakers around veterans issues.
Real quickly, and we're going to come back and really drill down on this, but if you kind of feel like you've tapped into the post 9/11 veteran community now, has that sort of been the thrust of it?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to everyone.
Old guys like me too.
Yeah, I mean, everyone. But a lot of folks live on their smart device, right? And so if you can get on your smartphone and answer a question about whatever we're asking you, whether it's mental health related, VA related, and then we can take all that data. We've got 1 million members now. We generally get a couple 100,000 to answer our polls. That's incredible amount of information that we give to folks that are making decisions. And so we not only we want to talk to veterans, but also veteran family members, right? That's a lot of people forget about the services and sacrifice they make. And so we're open to everyone. So yeah, absolutely join any veteran of any generation. And we found that the ability to communicate to a lot of people very quickly has been a pretty powerful factor when it comes to educating and informing our policymakers on what's best for veterans, because we're the ones telling them what we think.
That's awesome. Well, let's go back. Let's go build the foundation now. Tell me about young Garrett growing up. How'd you end up coming to West Point? Where'd you grow up? And how'd you get hooked into going to that little finishing school up on the Hudson?
That's right. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, with a twin brother. We're fraternal. I've always loved reading. I've just been passionate about it since I was a little kid. And so I was a third and fourth grader. I was reading all these books and I've always been drawn to history, particularly military history, biographies, and all these generals and presidents went to some school called West Point. So I decided in third grade, I'm going to go there too. No idea what it was.
Third grade.
Yeah.
That's pretty early.
And actually, my stepdad was a track coach, and one of his athletes got invited to a candidate luncheon. I tagged along. I think I was in the sixth grade, and I got patted on the head, told I was cute, and say, we'll see you in about 10 years. Well, I came back when I was a junior in high school. They remembered who I was. And they're like, holy cats, maybe got me some points at the admission committee there. And so only college I applied to, frankly, was West Point. If I didn't get in, I had no real backup plan, which has kind of been a theme throughout my life, all in. And 9/11 was my sophomore year at West Point in 2001. And so obviously changed the entire dynamic, the direction of the experience, because we knew we were all going to go to war as soon as we graduated, which made it obviously a lot more real while we were there.
Right. You get out of West Point in 2004. Talk a little bit about your branch selection and your path you took in the Army.
Sure. I for a long time didn't know what branch was either going to be infantry, armor, or aviation. I wanted to be one of the cool guys doing the cool stuff. Ultimately chose armor and got into a cavalry unit. I spent about 6 months after the armor's course in Ranger School, which is only a 2-month course. So recycled a couple times. Recycled during Best Ranger. So during an off season, and so a lot of time in the Gulag, and it ended up being a great time because I spent it with one of my best friends from the academy, who unfortunately was killed in action when we went to Iraq. So it ended up being a pretty special time. But in the mountain phase, I went to rappel off a cliff. And I'll never forget this. I looked at the ranger instructor and I said, am I hooked up correctly? And he said, I don't need to check your rig. You're almost a fully grown ranger. And I jumped off and I wasn't hooked up at all. So I fell 60 feet and shattered my
How many feet?
60.
60 feet.
So all I knew was together from airborne school. And so I put my feet and knees together and ended up fracturing my left heel bone pretty good, multiple places. And the other one, multiple kind of sprains and tears. And I just got carted off there. So almost the end of my Army career before it even started. But I healed up and they sent me straight to Fort Hood, where I joined the cavalry in 4th ID, and then went straight to Baghdad and literally met my platoon in combat. Right? I mean, it's what you learn about as a cadet. But I met my first job in the Army was as a scout platoon leader during the surge in 06 in Baghdad, which is a crucible year. A lot of folks hurt and killed violently here. So it's kind of where that's probably honestly the foundation for all this work in the veteran nonprofit world is that year and all the folks that were hurt and killed and trying to serve and give back still to this day.
You you went on to command Cavalry Troop.
I did.
I also said you went to Afghanistan, right?
I did. I tried to get in the Army 3 or 4 times. They kept giving me jobs I couldn't say no to. And so after my second year in Iraq, where I was a military advisor, I went in to see my boss, the squadron commander, and he's like out of a movie. He's in this Iraqi palace. He's wearing the Stetson and smoking a cigar. He's like, Cathcart, you're not getting out. Like, you're good at this. We need you. I'm like, sir, I got other things to do now. I've done 2 Iraqs. And he said, I'm going to give you a command of Alpha Troop, which is the troop I was in as a platoon leader. And our company commander, our troop commander, had been killed in action. So he knew I was special to me. So I said, all right, no one knows this because it's top secret, but you're going to be the first mechanized commander in Afghanistan. You're going to command in combat. Like, you can't say no to that. So I'm like, dang it, sir. Fine, I'll stay another 2 years. And so I took command of Alpha Troop 710 Cav, Buffalo Soldiers, trained him for a year, moved to Fort Carson, Colorado, and then we went to Afghanistan. And so probably one of the highlights of my life is absolutely commanding a cavalry troop in combat. Incredible stories and lessons are all throughout that. But commanded a cavalry troop in Afghanistan, was going to get out of the Army again. And then they said every brigade owes 1 captain to go interview to be the new aide de camp to the incoming commanding general. I said, I don't know what that is. I'm not doing it. Lo and behold, I ended up being the aide de camp to an incredible leader, a guy named Joe Anderson, who went on to command the 18th Airborne Corps and be the Deputy Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. But following him around for a year and carrying his backpack and getting yelled at and, writing his speeches was probably the best leadership experience I've ever had in my life.
You a pretty good writer?
I got better at it, right? You go from writing remarks, you figure out his style, and you read the audience. So as time went on, I could whip out stuff. But in the early stages, it was steep learning curve.
I bet. Hey, so you get out of the Army. You've done a number of things. You've launched a professional career. Talk a little bit about that transition, your first civilian job.
Yeah, and it was a transition that was accelerated because I followed a girl to California, which is always a good idea. And I had a job cooking in the State Department. There was a long process to get in. So in the interim, I needed a job, and so I went to one of those junior headhunting firms for military officers, and Orion or Cameron, where it was. And they said, "You're a med device guy." I'm like, "All right, what's that mean?" They're like, "Medical devices." I'm like, "I know what it stands for, but
How did they
what does it
determine
mean?"
you were a med device guy? I'm curious how they connected the dots on that.
I think
Or did they just
given a
have a
long
hole to fill?
I think a bit of both, because when I got in the role, they love athletes and ex-military folks with combat experience, but frankly, because doctors love to bro out, for lack of a better term, over those experiences, right? You
I
can
got it.
start a conversation and connect to a surgeon. So I went to Memphis, Tennessee, for Medtronic for a spine representative, and this is Army. It's my first job interview in my life. And I'm 32 years old, right? 33 years old. And so I come down to the lobby the next day after experiencing too much Memphis the night before, blues and barbecue till way late. And then all these young kids have always black leather shiny folders. And I was like, "What's in your folders, dudes?" "Oh, these are our resumes." I'm like, "Oh crap, we're supposed to bring resumes to this thing?" Again, my first job interview after I commanded in combat and worked for 2-star. And
I mean, they
I
didn't
said, "Don't worry
teach you
about
that
it."
TAP program.
What's that?
The TAP program. They didn't teach you to put together a resume.
No, I mean, I had a resume. I was like, that's why they flew me out here. They've seen it. And so I'm in the hallway. I said, "Hey, dude, if I send you an email, will you print out 10 copies?" He's like, "You didn't bring your resume?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I got it." And so the first day was 5 1-hour interviews across the whole company. And of course, the first office I walk into, it's the guy I stopped in the hallway. He's like, "Oh, hello, Garrett. Do you have your resume?" I was like, "Yes, sir, I do." He started laughing. He's like, "I give you 0 points for preparation, but 100 for innovation." And they're literally the motto of their company is the most innovative spine company in the world. I was like, "Sir, you want innovators or not?" And so then you get the leadership questions. And, as an Army officer, you have a myriad of experiences to draw on. So I ended up getting the gig. But very quickly went from, leading soldiers in combat in Afghanistan to working for an incredible senior leader in the Army to now being a med device rep in Beverly Hills, California. So I'm in these hospitals taking surgeons to nice fancy dinners, telling war stories. They're laughing. They're buying my stuff. But I say accelerate my transition because I learned very quickly that I need to believe in what I do. I have to, have purpose and camaraderie and community. And I didn't know what those words were at that time. But it really accelerated. I knew what I needed to do. I knew I was not happy, and it can be a very lucrative profession if you stay in it. But I didn't want that to be my life. And so the boss who gave me a huge break with no professional experience, no sales experience, no medical experience. I had to go kind of break up with him. Like, "Sir, it's not you, it's me. I can't do this anymore." And that's where I became the first Southeast Regional Director for a great nonprofit called Team Red, White, and Blue. And that's what took me from LA to Atlanta.
So, tell me a little bit about your involvement in Vetlanta and Bunker and Team Red, White, and Blue. You got pretty actively engaged.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this is kind of from my counterinsurgency experience in the Army. I got to Atlanta. I didn't know anybody at all, not one person. I knew I was supposed to help grow Team Red, White, and Blue, which is an organization that connects veterans through physical and social activity. And so I frankly started going to every meeting I could with the word veteran on it to say to meet people, who's good at this, who do I want to connect it to. And so it took me a couple of years, but I kind of figured out the map of the veteran space in Atlanta, which is the city is very generous to its veterans. The corporation is headquartered here, and a lot of the philanthropy here rather is incredibly generous. And so, got some great mentors here from the space, and really that led to meeting a guy named Joe Scroca who said, "Let's start a Bunker Labs here in Atlanta," because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that frankly need a little bit of help when it comes to networking and access to capital. And that's where I met Todd Connor. I said, let's do it. And so that became a volunteer job of starting the Bunker Labs chapter. And that leads to meet more people. And that led to me kind of helping Vetlanta a little bit, which is another volunteer role. And they asked me to join their board of directors as their chief community engagement officer. And so I was in that role for, I think, 3 years, which was incredible.
Joe's an investment banker in Atlanta, I think, right?
Yeah, he runs a firm called Nova Point, and so
Right.
he knows finances very well, and and other folks, and so I kind of was the veterans connector guy, and he was the kind of gathered some of the business resources around, and it's a thriving chapter now, right? And so I've stepped away from both Bunker and Vetlanta to focus on mission roll call specifically, but I got I met a lot of people through those roles, and I hope we are able to help a lot of veterans too. So kind of very quickly became one of the folks in Atlanta, to connect with most of the veteran organizations and kind of get the lay of the land.
When did you think you first recognized that there was this gap, that there was a place for what would become mission roll call? When did you start to recognize that? Was there an aha moment, or did it just
It's more of a slow burn, right? I mean, working in the post 9/11 veteran space with Team Red, White, and Blue, they were focused on building relationships to enrich lives. And the other big 9/11 ones are, Team Rubicon, that is disaster relief, and Mission Continuous Community Service. And those are all about getting veterans out into the community and giving them purpose and connecting with other veterans. And they're not really policy focused though. When we're talking about in federal, policies from the VA or federal law are doing, that mostly goes to the big six, the legacies, right? And rightfully so. They have tradition and membership and expertise. And so it was like, how come no one, what are we going to do? How are we going to make our voices heard? And so the light bulb was really kind of after the Montana moment of everyone in their family has a smart device. What if we can create an environment and an ecosystem where we can communicate through it, right? And educate people through it, and have, incredible videos where we tell stories, right? So we can create a community digitally rather than in person, which is, look, nothing will ever replicate seeing someone in the eye, shaking their hand, and spending time in real life, breaking bread and having a cup of coffee. But if we want to scale, we want to scale quickly, and we want to get to that, those 9 million veterans that aren't connected to any organization, then we're gonna have to use technology. And so that's what we spend our time focusing on, and we've had some success.
Let's take a step back for a second and talk about the veteran service organization universe, if you will. I mean,
sure.
50,000 organizations, maybe. I don't know what the
Yeah,
right count is. I've heard different
45,000,
numbers.
Yeah. But I think the number I used to know off the top of my head, the number that's $1 million or more is under 10, right? And so
under 10.
Yeah, not very many over 1 million. And so, right. But now that being said, some of the best nonprofits are the local, mom and pop. We do this thing for veterans in our community in the world because
running a home or doing something.
Yeah, and this is what America's Warriors Partnership. This is what they do. We've learned that no one knows their veterans more than the community than they live in, right? It's bottom up community integration approach. The community itself is the best at knowing and then connecting and taking care of their veterans, right? And so, like here in Atlanta, the Warrior Alliance, it is a nonprofit that it's an ecosystem of other nonprofits, right? And so you come to a Team Red, White, and Blue event, I meet you. Oh, you want to go to school? You need help with mental health care? You're in, because they're all connected now through Warrior Serves this computer system. And so, because it used to have to know a guy. It used to be word of mouth. Oh, this works. Go here. I know a guy. We know that's not a system, right? That's not having to meet someone that knows the right place to go is not a real system. And so, how do we scale that to communities across the country? That's what we're trying to do. And so we know that no one knows it better than the community. So,
but help me understand organizationally, America's Warrior Partnership. Where does that fit with Mission Roll Call, so to speak?
So we are underneath AWP. Mission Roll Call is a program of America's Warrior Partnership. So I always tell folks it's like Procter and Gamble and Colgate, right? So we're a separate brand, and I lead the product. But my boss is the president and CEO of AWP, Jim Lorraine.
And then what is AWP's mission, and before we drill down on Mission Roll Call a little bit further?
Yeah, they are the experts in community integration, right? And so they got several programs, one of which I think their marquee is coming into cities and really helping them find where their veterans are and then connect them to the best in class nonprofits, right? So it's both a local approach, and one of their other great programs is called The Network. It is this national collection of veteran resources across the country. and anyone can sign up on their website or on ours and mission roll call and say, hey, this is who I am and what I need. A human being will call you within 24 hours and get you connected to whether it's healthcare, VA stuff, you want to volunteer somewhere, and so they are really kind of the resource when it comes to anything you need as a veteran or veteran family member.
Okay, so now mission roll call comes together. Talk about how you've sort of marched through that evolution. I mean, you say now you've got over 1 million veterans that have signed up.
Yeah,
You're capturing that 9 million and getting them connected, right?
yeah, and frankly, a lot of learning. I like to tell folks we're a startup, and we still are, right? We had an idea, and we're trying things, and we raised some money, and AVP helps fund us too. And so, in the beginning, I knew social media requires content, right? But in the very beginning, it was me with an iPhone talking to my veteran friends and putting it on the internet. Now we've since evolved to we've hired a documentary filmmaker who's filmed in Nepal and all over the world, Africa, who works for us full time to tell really high-end stories around veterans. One, it helps change perceptions of veterans in the country. But two, the hope is, and what we're seeing success in, is that other veterans see these and are like, wow, these guys are legit. They're telling real stories, things I can connect to personally. Let me see what this is about, right? So it becomes almost not only content, but it becomes a recruiting tool for us as well. And recruiting meaning just to join mission roll call. And so, of course, we pay advertising dollars to get more eyes on some of these videos. We've had some great early adopters and what I call brand ambassadors. Medal of Honor recipient Clinton Romshay has done a video for us, and he's a member. Medal of Honor recipient Sal Ginta has done the same. Medal of Honor recipient Flo Grover, who I met the day before he received the medal in Afghanistan, has done one. Nate Boyer. And so we kind of get these high-profile veterans vouching for us and advocating for us. That's been a great help to us as well. But we're still continuing, right? We want to grow until there's no number in mind. There's 9 million Americans not connected. We would like to get as close to that as possible to where we can pull a large number of veterans and their families and really understand on the ground what's working, what's not working. And our banner issue, the first poll we sent out, and the overwhelming response is, what should we be working on? Almost everyone said veteran suicide crisis. How do we help solve this, right? And there's a lot of ways.
I was going to ask the question, one of the top 2 or 3, issues, it's probably the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah. I mean, everyone, it's the veteran suicide crisis, right? And we just found out yesterday, a guy we met with in Philadelphia who was this incredible leader, very passionate. We filmed a lot and told his story. He was undercover narcotics officer for a long time after the Army. Unfortunately, last week he took his own life, right? So even some of the most outspoken advocates of preventing veteran suicide still succumb, right? And so it's a lot of it has to do around mental health, access to mental health care, stigma around seeking health care, having purpose in your life, and something we've really kind of latched on to and promote is this concept of post-traumatic growth, right? Everyone knows about post-traumatic stress, but this is a scientific concept, and there's organizations called Boulder Crest that are teaching this, where you can go through something very hard, very difficult, and when you process it correctly, come out the other end to be stronger. And so, I think that's true in my own life. What's that?
Boulder Crest, I think, has a facility in Northern Virginia. Am I right on that?
They do. That's the original one. And so there's one now in Tucson, and they're hoping to grow theirs. But that's something that, frankly, I believe in personally in my own life, right? You go through hard things, you do the work, you come out on the other side, and you're so much stronger and capable of more than you were before. Because I think a lot of veterans fall in this kind of entitled victimhood, right? We've all done hard things, right? And I've been served a lot of guys. We've seen and done hard things. But what's next, right? I tell a lot of folks, man, if I'm 80 years old and I'm still wearing my little Afghan hat and I'm telling the same stories about Afghanistan when I was then I missed out on a lot of life. I need to be making new stories, leading in new ways, finding new purpose, right? I'm so grateful for those experiences. Leading 130 Cavalry Scouts in combat was the greatest honor of my life. But what do I use that experience for now, right? And so how do I move forward and continue to lead and serve at my purpose besides just kind of, living in that past, and that's the greatest moment of my life. Now what? It's kind of the concept.
How does how do people, is there a role for volunteers within the organization? As you're growing this thing, how do individuals get involved and contribute?
the main thing now is spread the word and join us, right? I mean, our strength is in our numbers. When we can go to Congress and we can go to anyone and say, look, we sent out a poll on this specific bill on veteran suicide prevention, and we got 300,000 people said this. People really pay attention. And so, right now, the biggest thing is to join and to spread the word, right? I mean, it is incredibly powerful to be able to, at the push of a button, see what a lot of veterans think, 1 million veterans think, right? Because then you command a lot of attention from decision makers. And the reality is we're a platform. It's not our agenda. It's not what we think or say. We're creating a platform for what veterans think and say. And that's why I love this work, is it is, crowdsourcing public policy, right? Which is kind of a cool concept.
It's, let me ask another question. What would be the number 2 issue? I'm really interested. Veteran suicide is high profile. I mean, is 22 a day the right number? We hear all about that. What's sort of the number 2 issue? And I don't know, maybe it's mental health issues, just generally, but how is the the winding down of some of our efforts in the Middle East and COVID and maybe transition and employment affecting some of these issues?
All of them, right? I mean,
it's a perfect storm, I think, with COVID.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Army did a really good job when I was in active duty of creating soldiers, but there's some work to do when it comes to transitioning soldiers back into civilians, right? And so, and if you don't have a job and you can't get it, you're underemployed, which is another problem. You can't get a job of your experience level. That's not good for your mental health and income. And so, they're all related, right? And so, employment is huge for veterans. How do you get your first job when you get out, and what is it? Healthcare, right? Whether it's mental health care, access to it, or otherwise, we're learning about burn pits and toxic exposure, and a lot of things aren't being covered. That we sent our folks to live in a lot of places where things were leaching into the ground that were not good, right? And so, when it comes to 9/11 veterans, it's not specifically different from most other veterans. I mean, Vietnam veterans are still finding Agent Orange recognized, right? I mean, that's been a long fight, and so. I think you hit on it when it comes to it's healthcare, including mental health care, employment, transition. And we're working on some things right now that do with all those. We're not ready to really roll those out yet, but we're talking to some organizations. Even things like, it seems small, but if you're a combat medic in the Army, you can't get a job as a paramedic or an EMT because there's the state licensures, right? And so we're thinking about maybe taking that on. Hey, this just makes sense. You've done all these certifications from DOD, how come they don't match to the state when really there's probably no one better trained in the world at trauma than you are, combat medic, right? And so that'd be something for employment that we could work on. It's very kind of tactile and it's a significant win that we can measure.
Do you get into, some more political issues like, I don't know, Second Amendment issues and some of the other stuff that tends to be high profile political stuff? I mean, are you getting asked questions?
No, we kind of try to stay away from that because they're so charged. Everything's so polarized now, right? So we are hyper nonpartisan, right? We don't want to get into politics. It's hard when you talk about policy. There was a VA policy they wanted to do where, they wanted you to restrict access to firearms at a certain point. And so we didn't really take a stance on that or ask our people about it rather. So, but to your point, no, we really don't get into kind of political things, right?
I think the general public thinks that veterans and people in the military generally are these automatons. We've really got a diverse spectrum of folks, right? And I wonder, just one more question in that regard. I mean, do you feel like there's kind of a divide between the veterans and the civilian community? Is there a lack of understanding of what, we're all about?
I think in some cases, yes, that's true. 1% of our population is in the service, and we've been for years. And it's been that same 1% for the most part, going back over and over and over again. And so, unlike in previous wars, these wars haven't really affected mainstream America that much. It's in the news every now and then, maybe, but in World War II,
I don't think 90% of Americans could even know we're in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't affect a daily American life. Not clearly not like World War II where you had to ration butter. Clearly not like Vietnam where everyone was subject to the draft. Desert Storm over in 100 hours, right? And so it's when and this is our long. These are both the longest wars in American history, right? And so
Right.
I just don't think because it doesn't affect most Americans. I don't think necessarily they don't care. It's just not in their thoughts because it's not in the news. It doesn't affect their life. They're busy leading their lives, doing their jobs, raising their families, and so
We're more worried about masks and getting a shot, getting a vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, the world's crazy right now, and so there's a lot of problems in the world. So that's not a lack of caring. I think it's a lack of awareness.
Hey, I forgot to ask one thing. Tell me about what's a Bush Scholar? We were sort of.
Oh yeah.
Incredible. You had that on your resume. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Veteran Stand to Leadership Program, which is hosted by the George W. Bush Institute. And they draw also folks from the Clinton Library. So it's nonpartisan, but they pull executive leaders that serve veterans from government agencies, from corporations, and from nonprofits. And it's a 6-month program. It's almost like getting an MBA and a master's degree and veteran stuff, right? And so, we had a weekend in Seattle at Microsoft and Amazon. We had a weekend, a couple weekends in Dallas at the Institute, and a weekend in DC. And so you meet with high-level policymakers and lawmakers and experts and PhDs. And so, and one of the greatest parts to me was connecting with other senior leaders in the space, right? And so whether it's
how many people were in your cohort that you were
43.
So really, and that must have been a great little networking opportunity of itself.
It was incredible. I mean, everyone from Lauren Augustine, the senior leader, one of the senior leaders at Student Veterans of America, to the veterans director at Johnson & Johnson, to senior leaders at the VA, to folks that lead veterans at Salesforce. And it's a pretty special group. So we're learning together, but also we're becoming our own community, right? And that now you can pick up the phone and call people with influence that are passionate about what you're passionate about and really do some cool stuff, which is, I think, the whole point of the program.
Hey, we've been talking with Garrett Cathcart. He's the executive director of Mission Roll Call. I say this on just about every podcast, Garrett. I can't believe how quickly 30 minutes goes by. So, could chat a lot. How do people get in touch with Mission Roll Call? Obviously, we're going to put a lot of links, social media and otherwise, on the show notes. But what's the primary way of reaching out and getting connected?
So we are on all social channels. It just says Mission Roll Call, 3 words, and also missionrollcall.org is our website. And that's where I'd probably direct most folks. One, if just to sign up and please join us. And we'd love to send you just one newsletter a month and, one text a month, if that. And also to kind of see the work that we've already done on our website that we're pretty proud of. See some of our stories of veterans that we told.
Well, that's fantastic. Like I said, we'll put all the links to that on the show notes. Garrett Cathcart, Executive Director, Mission Roll Call. Thank you so much for stepping into the spotlight today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bob. It's been my pleasure.
Hey, you've been listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. We're bringing veterans who are making a difference in our community to you every week. I'll get a shout out and a Bravo Zulu to Garrett Cathcart, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by Veteran Crowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at veterancrowdnetwork.com. We'll see you next time.